Dawn comes quickly over Bethlehem. The moon gently fades as the sun begins to glow over this holy land. Shepherd boys call to each other as they take their flocks to fresh hillside pastures. The caravans move on. These are the hills. These are the scenes still so reminiscent of the world that the Holy Family would have known. Within 500 yards of the humble birthplace of Christ, now stands the Holy Family Hospital, an internationally respected world-class maternity hospital. It was established over 120 years ago by the Daughters of Charity and has been run by the Order of Malta since 1989. A fitting continuation of the Order's work in the Holy Land, where in the 11th century, its hospital in Jerusalem cared for pilgrims as well as for the indigenous Christian, Jewish, and Muslim population. It too had an obstetrics ward. Many things have changed, but the purpose of the order that promotes the Christian values of charity and brotherhood remain constant. Dr. Robert Tabash is the hospital's director. He was born in Bethlehem.
The aims of the hospital are to serve the needy and the poor, irrespective of religion, creed, nationality, or social status, in the best tradition of the Order of Malta.
The hospital is the primary maternity center for the Bethlehem area, comprising the neighboring towns, villages, Bedouin settlements, and acts as a referral center for refugee camps sponsored by the United Nations. The dedicated medical staff come mainly from the Bethlehem area, but they have been trained all over the world.
The hospital is also a teaching facility. We train doctors for the specialty of gynecology obstetrics. We also train doctors for the first and only faculty of medicine in the Palestinian territories, which is the University of Jerusalem. We train midwives, general nurses, neonatal nurses. The hospital has reached a medical standard which is comparable to anything in the Western world. The success of the hospital was, for example, to establish the first neonatal intensive care unit in the whole Bethlehem area.
These high international standards are recognized by the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists in London and the European Board of Gynecology and Obstetrics. The modern laboratories, operating theaters, the specialist neonatal units, and the dedicated human values are all the more remarkable given the depressed social conditions, the wars and local conflicts that make the running of the hospital a constant challenge.
The challenge and difficulties of running such a high-standard hospital is the fact that we're running it in such difficult times and under severe conditions and sometimes under dangerous conditions.
It's impossible not to see the Holy Spirit that guided Joseph and Mary to safety still at work in the communities, giving hope and strength to the expectant mothers, coping with the struggles of everyday life in this conflict-torn land.
A journey of a mother coming from a village surrounding Bethlehem to the Holy Family Hospital might begin by coming out of her home on foot up to the first roadblock, which would be just around the village. And then she would have to talk her way with the soldiers around there for them to permit her to cross onto the other side of a road. And by the time she does that 2 or 3 times, she arrives to the surrounding area of Bethlehem, where she can, at that point in time, take a car. A journey which usually would take 10 minutes would have taken her 5 hours. If we're talking about a premature labor, for example, it would be too late for a baby if he's born on a checkpoint.
Often the patients arrive tired and frightened, frustrated and humiliated. Military restrictions mean that few mothers receive regular health care screening during pregnancy, and over 10% are seen for the first time when they walk into the hospital in labor. 15% of babies born in the hospital are premature.
We also train the mothers when they come here. We have prenatal classes. We train the mothers to breastfeeding. Every mother who comes in here has her own private session. We also have an educational program for the population at large that deals in certain aspects of mother and child care.
They have 4, and she's pregnant with the 5th child. It's important for her husband to understand that she's pregnant now. She can't do everything for him. She's a human being, and her husband has to treat her as a human being.
Between the houses and the alleys, the shacks and the shelters, there is a great presence reminding us of the simplicity of Christ's own birth. There's little work nowadays. Many families are very poor. There's often little food, causing a lack of nutrition in the families. Frustrations build up, and domestic violence is not uncommon. It's a vicious circle that is hard to break. The hospital runs outreach clinics around Bethlehem in order to be able to serve some of the smaller encampments and villages where no doctors ever arrive, or there is no medical personnel on site. These are also a challenge to operate, as barriers and roadblocks often hinder the most simple of journeys. But this service enables medical and social care to be brought to the doorstep of mothers who for one reason or another are unable to travel to the hospital. In particular, it makes it possible to access the poor existing in pockets of poverty in remote hillside communities, often living in dreadful conditions in shacks without sanitation, light, heat, or clean water.
Ou bien pour éduquer la femme que la grossesse doit être bien surveillée. Alors, ou bien elles ont albumine beaucoup, ou bien elles sont diabétiques, ou il y a des antécédents familiaux qui sont assez graves parfois, et les femmes ignorent tout ça. Après des années où j'ai regardé l'homme tel qu'il est, ce qu'il est, peu importe, mais pour le servir et me donner à ce pauvre, le pauvre m'apprend beaucoup de choses. Il me fait découvrir beaucoup de valeurs.
The Holy Family Hospital has achieved so much. Almost 3,000 children are now annually delivered. Between 1990 and 2004, 33,000 mothers gave birth without a single maternal death in delivery. It provides the community of Bethlehem with a place of solace and safety. But it has also recently signed an agreement to become the chief neonatal intensive care hospital for the whole of the Palestine region. It trains and teaches, reaching out to touch thousands of lives. It's fully committed to working in peace and in emergency situations.
Some time ago, the hospital came under attack on several occasions, and the building was hit by many bullets, shells, wire-guided missiles. We carried on delivering babies because, in fact, babies would not stop at that moment to wait for the shells to stop.
The hospital receives no financial support from the Palestinian government. There is neither health insurance nor social welfare payments available. Patients are asked to pay what they can afford, but no one is ever turned away. For those unable to pay anything, the hospital has an indigent fund. Despite the most stringent control of expenditure, the hospital runs at a loss. The brunt of this heavy burden is borne by the Order of Malta and many generous donors.
The real joy of working in this hospital is really to see life plunging every day, to see those premature babies, those very small, tiny babies, who without the specialized care of Holy Family Hospital would die. There is no other center that would take care of them.